stand for the pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Mr. Knight. Kevin, you here? Here. Bobby here. Present. I am too. And we have two missing.
Go ahead and actually say their names. So.
Okay,
Yes.
Jackie Boyd and Chris.
Both absent.
So with this, we do have a quorum. We'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'm gonna look this way since I don't have to look that way.
I guess I'm second.
With a second. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Who's taking minutes?
It's being recorded.
Okay, cool. We don't have the minutes from the last meeting, so we won't call for an approval of the minutes. So we'll go ahead and skip down to new business. A, discussion and approval of amendments to Village of Angel Fire Street and Thoroughfare map. Do I have a motion to discuss it and approve it? Well, let's just go and discuss it first. I don't know about the approval yet. So I said, let's just go and discuss it. Do I have a motion to discuss?
I will make a motion to discuss this.
Do I have a second?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The exhibit that you've been handed is the street map and thoroughfare plan that was adopted probably in 2008. Prior to that, there's been an opportunity for the village to take over the right of way for Crestview, right in front of the Grand, and it wraps around the Grand and connects with Sage Avenue, Sage Lane, but it's a private road. The owner of that street is willing to concede it to the village. The hesitancy in doing so is this map. The roads that were provided as collectors, I've highlighted in yellow. The idea with that collector that runs through the Girl Scout Ranch, runs through the mobile home estates, runs through the current RV park and taps into our BHO through 64. So the thought at the time, and there was another conversation going on with this, the eastern boundary from
Is
60.
this the idea group? Is that, was it?
I'm not sure how it came about.
I recall this coming up.
So the idea was to take all the heavy trucks off of 434. That they would use these collectors to get to the back basin. They would use this collector to get to our Miho and not go up 434.
Right.
And so that's how this was proposed, is my understanding, and that there would even be a connection through the community center to Buckskin.
Right.
To allow traffic to come off 64 through property the village doesn't own in the county, tie into Buckskin, go up back basin to get to the lift. And then on this side, heavy trucks would be encouraged to come down this collector and then come down Sage or come down Crestview. The village is very interested in taking over that right of way, contingent on our plan being updated. So what I've highlighted in yellow for you was originally blue, that would match the legend. Hey, would like to plan a future collector, and a collector is a street that connects to arterials, which is the state highways and neighborhoods. So, but to me, there's been no discussion of making these collectors even into a reality. And third, we don't even own, the village doesn't own any
Well, I
of
was
this
gonna ask,
property.
how much of this is dependent on eminent domain and how much on easement negotiations?
All of it.
Right.
But the part over here, the village has no right for eminent domain, because that's in the county.
Right.
How would we even build a
That's not
road?
even expert
So,
territorial.
yeah,
right?
the purpose of this is to bring trucks down this instead of the highway that's built.
That's correct, it
So we're
was
gonna build a
designed.
road that's gonna handle trucks. I don't think so.
So, and it also goes through properties that I don't know that anybody wanted a road like this size to go through the Girl Scout Ranch. To go through the RV park that's now built as well, because that's where that connection is, if you look.
No,
It's right through the RV park that's been built, so. It seems reasonable that the reality of this plan is not gonna come to fruition. The village is interested in acquiring that right of way, making sure it's at the right width. and built to our standard. It's contingent upon the items in yellow being removed as collectors. I still think it makes sense for what's being proposed on the west side of 434. That's correct, with the blues going out, so West Ridge actually becoming a collector. Elliott Barker actually becoming a collector to handle, and that it eventually would be paved as well. There is a connector from Fria to Agua that was being proposed. That all those things kind of make sense. The segments in yellow, I don't know how that actually comes into fruition in 2024 and beyond.
I have property on two of those proposed roads. Does that preclude me from?
There's no financial gain in any of these conversations.
No, there's probably gonna be a special assessment, I would guess.
The roads have not been built, the roads are not proposed to be built, but legally we have to amend this map so that it's reflective of the village's goal for collectors.
The only,
Yes.
the only one that I find different is when Vigrund or going up to the why we're not considering this section?
So this is built, Buckskin is
No, I
built,
know, but this section here,
that would go through the gun range.
Right.
So
which is
It's a moving target. We can hit
property,
it.
but what?
I said, it's a moving target. We can hit it.
It was just curious because that could create a little bit of that noise.
So, it's important for this process to have a conversation at this level with P and Z before it goes to council. And if P and Z wants to make amendments to this, but I hope you get the idea of why the ask is being asked. There are some collectors that the village has no jurisdiction to go into the county, condemn property to build a road, as was proposed here off the 64 on the backside.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the folks who live on Buckskin want a connection through the community center, which was intended for trucks to use anyway. If there's a different conversation about the segment between Valle Grande and Pinto and Buckskin, that's reasonable. But on the west side of 434, staff is recommending the parts that were originally in blue that are now highlighted in yellow just be removed as future collectors.
Just want to clarify. So everything that's in yellow would be removed.
Correct.
Blue stays.
The blues stay, yes.
This
So-
piece here was just like going up through the gun range.
Well, that piece is already built.
It's done.
Yeah, Buckskin's built.
But it's
and
not,
Pinto-
it's not
That's
in
not-
green, it's in blue.
That's correct.
Right. So just want to make sure that we all are on the same page. What we're voting on is to vacate the yellows with this discussion and approves, possible approval of the thoroughfare map.
That's correct. And this is the last thing, Mr. Chairman. If I haven't mentioned this before, we're actually working with UNM on a new GIS map that's adding parcels, addresses,
That'd be
roads. So we've asked them to make amendments, so what's proposed in blue that's already built, we can actually update on a GIS map that Buckskin Road is actually a collector and it would go from blue to green. So, but the conversation is all, like you had mentioned, Mr. Chair, everything in yellow being vacated.
What about this spot right here, this little piece?
That's what,
That's what I
that's the
was
gun
asking
range that Commissioner May was talking about.
Yeah, there was,
I mean, I can see keeping that because of, fire access, those kind of things because as it is now, if you go into Buckskin, you just go to the end and.
There's a cul-de-sac.
Right.
To be honest, Mr. Chairman, if there's a different conversation you want to have on that segment, that's fine. Staff would prefer that segment that goes from Buckskin through the county to get to 64. The segment that goes through the
Yes.
community center, yes, that piece, that goes to the community center to get to Buckskin. And then the two segments on the west side of 434.
Yeah, well, the gun range is owned by an individual, and so, I would say you're probably not gonna get that unless you. Like I say, there's no domain, there's no responsible or no cause for it, so, my contention would be everything in yellow.
That's staff's recommendation and presentation, but again, if the conversation is to look at everything minus that, that's still within reason to do.
I'd like to do that, just until we,
Get that part fleshed out.
yeah.
That's fair enough. Again, this This map still has to go to council, and it will report at council. Everything in yellow, if that's the motion that's adopted, to be removed from the thoroughfare plan. But to have more conversations about this one piece, I'll just give that
It would
I'll
be-
just a different
Of
color.
everything I'm seeing here, that's the only piece that really makes sense.
It does for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I'll put that as a different color when it goes to council for color coding.
Yeah, just. So
I think we've got it.
have a thorough discussion.
Fair
I
enough.
think we've got it on the table where it's, right now, the way it's worded out is, everything in yellow. So if we're not gonna do that, then we need to amend the motion or turn this motion down and redo it, so.
And I'm fine taking everything off, just thinking that, you know, in the future, we might revisit putting that back.
Yeah, so I'm gonna call for a vote to approve removing all yellow. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, what we'll do when we take to council is be mindful of that piece, and if there's a different conversation that they want to take, that's fair enough. There's no real urgency on that side of 434 at the moment. It's really on the west side of 434, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
and
Chairman.
so on, one more question here. On these, on the west side, extending these up and paving and all that, that's sewer and everything in there, right?
This is just the street thoroughfare plan to make it. Ideally, I believe the objective for the village is if we're gonna pave a road, let's make sure the utilities underneath it are already there, so we don't have to do it twice, so.
Okay, moving right along. B, discussion and approval of proposed access easement for lot 33 of Angel Fire Village North and the Village of Angel Fire. Postscript.
Was there a motion to discuss it?
Do I have a motion to discuss?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, let's open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you've noticed, the road that takes you to the community center, there's been some improvements made for storm drainage. Where riprap's been put down, there's been new culverts installed. Feeding into Valley Road, and so the property owner on 33 would like to mirror the access that the property owner on the east side of CS Ranch has. Their drive approach is in that access to the community center. When the village did the upgrades to that storm drainage system, they had to, I believe they removed the culvert, put in a new culvert, had to restabilize a lot of things. So this request would be to provide an access easement to this lot off that road. But it's far enough north that it makes no impact to all those improvements that the village just did. You know, we're not having to. It's that lot right there.
Oh, the one beside it.
Yeah, right beside the.
Yeah, yeah, it's that lot just immediately to the west of the right of way. And it's not in, the property to the east has an access that's just a little bit south of what's being proposed here. And so it's right at the tail end of all those improvements that needed to be done. Originally, the request that was made was everything in gray, but you'll notice that there's some hatch outs in red. It's just that straight strip now. I don't have field notes yet, but we will have field notes for council. It's, yes, everything in the blue that will provide access from the right of way to the property.
Right,
So,
I think it's more than reasonable.
so it has been modified. I don't have the new notes yet, but you get the idea of what we'd like to consider. Originally, council asked, that at least P and Z take a look at it, get any comments before they consider it. So, because ultimately, the village owns the community center property, so this easement would run with the land and they'd have to be agreed upon by field notes. The council asked for your consideration before they brought it up for consideration.
Any further discussion?
That was everything?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Motion to approve.
I moved that we approve.
Second.
All in favor? Yep.
Aye.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I like your pace.
Keep it going. All right, So let's go into C, discussion and approval of proposed amendment to Title 8. Here we go. Entertain a motion to discuss and approve the proposed amendment to Title 8.
I move that we discuss.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, we mentioned this briefly in either May or June. Right now, the village doesn't have a building official, but has the entitlement to have a building official. And our code today for building code says you gotta build according to the 2003 building code. State of New Mexico's revised there to say at least 2021 building code. This is to mirror at least the minimums that the state of New Mexico is applying on all permit review. The plumbing code, our code said 1997 plumbing code, CID is using 2021 plumbing code. Mechanical,
UBC. Isn't it?
yes, it's the uniform building code, which that, yes, so building codes across the United States used to be divided into sections based on where you were geographically. In the West, it was the UBC Uniform Building Code. They all got merged in because there was a lot of conflicts with engineers going, well, that's a UBC standard and not an IBC standard, whatever. So they all got merged. Different amendments depending on where you are geographically, topography, altitude, things of that nature. But this just mirrors what CID is currently using. They also have a section, we didn't have a reference to an electrical code in Title 8. So part of the proposed amendments is to have that. Again, this does not impact any of the permits currently in review because we do not have a building official.
Right.
But if we hired a building official, there's at least an updated baseline for them to conduct their reviews. So what I also did is, based on what CID has on their listing of statutes of what codes, this section here is they've added these components. There's an international commercial energy code, commercial building code, commercial energy conservation code. All right, so I just feel it's important for the village to mirror where we can. With the building official, the village still has the allowance to make amendments to say, hey, for example, we're gonna use the 2021 building code, but section J, we're gonna make a local amendment because it needs to be designed specifically.
Higher.
It could be a different standard. It could be higher, lower, absolutely.
Okay.
But there has to be action at the P and Z council to say, we're adopting it with this amendment. So this does not preclude the village from saying, hey, we're getting comfortable with the international code, but what the baseline is for garages, we don't want to do that. So for example, building code calls for carports having to be a certain spacing from a property line. But a local amendment could say, hey, if it's non-combustible made from metal and it's open on at least 3 sides, you could put it at 2 feet, 1 foot, 0 foot, so long as it's under 13 feet. That's a local amendment that some people consider, which also tells the homeowner, don't build it by wood and expect it to get approved to be right on the property line. Because then a fire break could just exceed over from your neighbors onto your lot or vice versa. I'm not saying that's something the village should do, it's just an example. It's just an example of the discretion that the village has. Should we have a building official and they feel this is a good baseline, let's do some tweaks.
Yeah. What would be the reasoning not doing, just saying, Title 8 building regulations shall conform with, the internet, the most current out there? Be done with all the rest.
I think you gotta name it.
Right now, our code says this,
Right,
right?
but we can
So
amend the whole thing.
you can, to me, it just
Make
seems
it
easier.
one easy,
You-
it's gotta meet this, and that's it. End of discussion, all of
You
it.
can, then we just really strike all of Title 8 and just make it three sentences.
Right,
Yeah,
and then that'd make it cleaner for the next time that it goes to, in 2020, if we're still around in 2028, 29, 30, whatever we may be.
Mr. Chairman, that makes total sense. If that's the recommendation you want to put forward, we can actually take both recommendations to the council and say, do you want to write it this way, where we do the strikeouts and the ads? Or do you want to strike the whole thing and just say all trade codes, building codes must conform to the latest version.
I'd still leave them
Conducted by
broke out
CID.
like this in case something changes on one of them. You have to
So
specifically call it
that
out.
each section just say,
Line item.
for each that, for plumbing code, village
Right.
manager fire must use the latest version adopted by the state of New Mexico's construction.
I tend to agree. And it becomes a resource for the person that's reading it. Then they can research as opposed to just look it up, Google it.
Mr. Chairman, we're not, we
I'm
have,
just thinking, keep it simple, stupid. I mean,
that's a reasonable ask, and if that's the preferred recommendation, that,
Yeah, Mark.
that makes
That's
total
fine.
I
sense.
mean, you see anything wrong with that? Is it too vague? Is it
No.
too, okay.
No, and in fact, I think some other jurisdictions say that they'll say, hey,
Must be.
our building code is all managed by CID, just apply to the minimum standards of CID.
Right, because,
I'll talk to Los Lunas, because I believe Los Lunas does the same thing, and if there's language that we can mirror on that, but I think I hope you see the intent. I'm not coming up.
No, I totally
We
agree.
just, there's no need, if a building official starts tomorrow, he's gonna revert back to a code that's 20 years old.
out of date.
Yeah,
That,
this is non-compliant,
exactly.
Right.
so we have to do something.
So that's, so. Here we go. Motion to approve as written.
Is that where we ended up?
Well, I don't know, we gotta, if we don't wanna, if we're gonna do it just one line item, then we need to say no on this and then make an amendment to.
I
New
prefer,
motion.
I prefer language, you know, because I like to read.
I'll give you a book.
Yeah, okay. It seems to make, to lay
Because-
it out, but
Then you stop all of it and then it's done. You know, we don't have to address it again unless something comes up and we wanna change one segment of it, like the garages, you know, can be whatever.
If you want to have
It's-
right now, I think the motion is to consider the way it was written as presented. If you want to amend that motion, that's within reason, or if you want to vote that motion down to reconsider a new one, those are the options you have, Mr. Chairman.
I'm almost of the opinion, go ahead and adopt this and then pursue simplifying it. Instead of just leaving this out here in limbo for another.
Oh, I took, we wouldn't have to leave it out. We could amend the motion to put it as a must meet current CID building codes, period, and then you're done. So we can just amend what's on the table to that verbiage that we come up with and it's done and we don't have to wait.
If that's the direction, I kind of agree with Commissioner May that we say that for all the trades. So it's not just building code, but we say that for plumbing, mechanical, electrical.
So I think that would be the thing to do and does it have the dates in there? It says must meet current code,
Adopted codes by the state of New Mexico.
right? That
I
would,
mean, these things are intended not just to
that's the way I
advocate
do it. So
any
amend
kind
the
of
motion.
motion. They're also to be informative, aren't they, for the public to read and consume?
Yes.
So it's kind of like going, not my yacht, go call somebody else. I'm sorry, that's just
People will
how,
do that anyway.
I get it, it's just.
So
A
let's-
little bit helpful if
let's amend it
somebody's
to do
looking
that.
it up.
I mean, it already has language in there and all subsequent additions adopted by the state of New Mexico after the state.
On that one,
On all plumbing, mechanical,
Right.
electrical.
building code that does not. The very first one,
Right.
811,
Because we have quite a few,
and that new energy one's a bunch of dog.
owner builders,
You do.
and owner builders need all the help we can afford them.
But ultimately, if you have a building official needs to know what code should I do this review upon? And right now, our code references a building code
That's all.
and a plumbing code from the last century. So at least getting those dates forwarded, however you feel as a commission, it gets.
I'll go either, I don't care.
I think we, and I can't make a motion because I'm actually interested in it, and then.
We have a question from.
I just got a question on the wording on that. The thing you might want to be careful on is current. Because CID, so we just July 1st went to 2021. So in January, if you say current, if it's in the wording as current, it's not 2021.
Yeah, if
It's
you're caught
2018.
during a build, you could be in.
Because the state, they lag. They do it every
Oh, come
4
on,
years.
either.
So it, like, where I'm going is the current word, just
Right.
put in there, CID follows or the code they're using, because if you use current, like I said, January through June, you can get yourself in trouble because it's not 2021 code, it's 2018. July 1st, they switched to 2021.
And we referenced that date.
But that's-
Yeah, I'm just saying.
When it comes current, then you have to meet to that, yeah,
Confusion on the current.
right. It's in your own hand. All I do is hit break the tie and call it out.
Make it, you get to choose which motion you'd like to make. The
Yeah.
current one is your change it. It's my gift to you.
Could we just add this, all subsequent additions adopted by the state to the building codes,
You can,
J11?
you can. So that it's all uniform, all trades, all firms. We'll move that, we'll add that sentence if
I
that's.
feel better about that. I think.
Okay,
Okay, so we've amended it. All in favor to the amended? Say aye.
All right.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving right along. We discussed this before, Robin. You shouldn't have any questions about this one. Discussion and approval of proposed amendments for the cell tower regulations.
Yep,
I remember us doing that.
we didn't get, apparently it didn't get to council.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we had a fire that happened that kind of threw all schedules out of whack.
Is that what happened?
So, and this is exactly the same thing we approved last night.
It's exactly the same, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I'd recommend adding is that very first page, temporary cell units. We had it listed for, in the event of an emergency, a tower went down, things like that. If we could add, as an allowance, there are current conversations going on that during peak season at the resort, actually bringing in, I call them cows, celluars on wheels, to help enhance coverage for all the users that come. So right now we have 2 allowances that really lend itself to in the event of emergency where the tower goes down or the box goes down and we can bring in a temporary one. Having the allowance of one that's gonna be here for 30 days, 60 days by permit authorization from either the manager or building official so that they can park wherever they can park or need to park and enhance coverage while they're there. So whether that's like President's Day,
Christmas is always an emergency.
Christmas, President's Day weekend, things of
Well,
that
I
nature.
thought we already had that in there before special events. They could bring in a cow.
Right.
We didn't, it was part of this, but this didn't get to council within 180 days. And I didn't see it in this section,
Okay, I
so
think we
I just
should
wanna
add
make
that.
sure that we
Yeah,
add it.
that's-
Right, I think that's definitely, because we talked about the special events and stuff, which we needed.
It lets us scale.
Yes, it does. Just for everyone's background, the current cell tower ordinances only permit cell towers in 2 zoning districts that are here in the valley. Cell towers need some elevation to get better coverage, but we don't allow them in those districts. And so these amendments would allow them by conditional use permit on the mountain to provide better coverage, or if you needed to relocate a tower, there's an actual process to do that. So
And usually it's adding to a tower, right?
we have not had any permits to add boxes to towers.
Existing.
All we've had is just, I need to change out this one for a new one.
Right,
Okay.
change.
So we haven't had any permits the last 3 years to, hey, I need to go from 3 to 5. It's always been this one needs to be upgraded, okay? Or there's been a request to add another box at the bottom just to service feed, okay? But I haven't had an application to go from 5 cans to 7 cans to 9 cans, anything along those lines. But I also know that there's other conversations about maybe moving towers. At least we've got some of this in play, so.
I think we definitely have to add that, make that be CC,
I'll add that as we go to council, if that's part of the motion too.
and if everybody agrees with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Motion carries.
you're leaving.
Oh, did you bring the pot so we can all smoke it here?
No, sir.
Next one?
No, sir, in this conversation, I bring labels and plastic bags.
All right.
Understand.
Item E, discussion and approval of amendments to cannabis ordinance for limited manufacturing use. Motion to discuss and approve.
Motion to discuss.
So,
Okay, let's discuss.
Mr. Chairman, the state of New Mexico has an allowance that's classified as manufacturing. However, that term for manufacturing includes, hey, I've got a big bag and I need to put them into small bags. The state says that's manufacturing, the repackaging of it. Or I need to put labels on bags now, that's manufacturing. I need to extract oils from it, that's manufacturing, but the extraction, what I did not want to do is the state of New Mexico has 4 categories for manufacturing. Relabeling, repackaging, testing, extractions, and the extractions actually has 2 parts. There's an extraction that's proposed here, limited to mechanical methods and non-volatile solvents. There's a 4th option that allows chemicals and solvents, heavy solvents, to do extractions. What I did not want to have happen is I know the conversations we've had with the very first operator that wanted to come in, who wanted to grow, bake, sell, and wanted to tap into our waters. No, we don't have water rights for people to grow alfalfa. We're not gonna have water rights for people to grow cannabis. So rather than saying you could do a Title 1, 2, and 4, or 1, 2, 3 from the state of New Mexico, I just took the verbiage of what those allowances are and put them into the text. And then the last half of the amendment mirrors the allowance for retail sales in the overlay or C2 district. If you're in a C2 district, you have to be 300 feet from a residence or house.
Identical.
Yes, all of that's the same. It requires a conditional use permit either way. It's not allowed by right because you want to come and look. And the other thing about this is it has to be totally enclosed. You have to put it in a building and it can't be just a roof with exposed sides. So the intent is to provide this allowance for repackaging, labeling, extraction and testing
So give
by
me
conditional use.
some practical examples of what we're talking about, baking.
Well, the
Talking
gummies.
about making gummies, very.
That would not be. The conversion of flour into a different product is not allowed the way this definition is advised.
Okay.
This definition says you've got the product.
Right.
And you need to go from a 5-pound bag and put it into 1-pound bags, right?
So it's more of a repackaging.
That's part of it.
You
I need to label it
know, right.
or relabel it. That's,
Price it.
yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Is pricing technically a label or is it just,
So the label that they require.
if you would
Yes.
come up to introduce
So-
yourself?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Derek Enriquez, one of the owners at Off Grid over there. So essentially the labels that we have to print is just an FDA compliance label saying it's not here to, treat any medical things or anything. So that's what we have to put on every single package. So for me to print that label, I had to get a manufacturing license. And that's essentially the only thing, or if in the event we wanted to roll our own joints, we're not producing anything, we're literally putting the flour into paper. And that's considered manufacturing. You're not changing what the actual thing is, you're just putting it into a useful scenario. And then when it comes to the solventless extraction, I don't know if we ever really want to get into it, but the class 4 license is when you're using like alcohol, butane, propane to be able to extract THC. We don't want that. We are trying to say organic, pesticide free and all of that. The only other way to extract oil would be, it's like you said, a mechanical process. Yeah, it's 2 hot plates that when you press a button, it squishes the flour down and oil comes out. And that's the extent of it.
And I, just to piggyback on what Derek said, I think when we originally talked about the original ordinance on cannabis, limiting the ability with water, there was also conversations about, do we really want something that's got volatile chemical
Right.
or not?
Yeah, no, we don't
The
want
fact that the state says there's 2 tiers for that extraction, this text just takes the lowest one. It doesn't take the most extreme. So,
And in the event if we were going to do it, we're not trying to be like a big giant powerhouse. It's, we're a small batch in-house. It's just staying out of our shop. I think the other side wanted to go big,
they did.
they're big stream and kind of have a big powerhouse where us is just gonna be, one-man band.
But even in that instance, Mr. Chairman, we don't have that allowance in our code today to say, okay, you can repackage, you can relabel, you can do the hot plate. And we don't have that allowance for them to do it in the village anywhere, but it's just retail sales. So the other half of the ordinance would mirror the retail components that conditional use permit, spacing requirements. But the biggest part I want to emphasize is what this actual activity allows.
Right.
And
So,
you know, you had mentioned that you don't need the heavy
No, we're
solvents
not
and
looking to
chemicals.
do any of
So I
that.
didn't write that.
I
in.
wouldn't
do
want
you,
to do
do you
that.
currently like have your stuff packaged elsewhere and then brought here? Is that how you handle it? Or-
No, so currently I did get the manufacturing license because the state of New Mexico, the CCD required it. So I do have the license hanging in the store. We have it now, and yeah.
So he still has to come back and get a conditional use
Correct.
permit to match our codes. But he does have to still do that. Because the state's coming to inspect and investigate. and
Correct.
Do inventory control as well. So this is just an attempt to mirror that part of the
Have you
state.
been inspected?
Yeah, no, I got inspected, what was
I
it?
was just curious,
Yeah, no,
because
just-
other government agencies don't seem to.
Yeah, no, they came in December to inspect, the facility up here or the dispensary up here, and then I had an inspection at our grow facility 30 minutes south of here in March.
Okay.
So, typically I triggered the inspections because I had questions similar to the manufacturing thing, and then, they just come up and.
It was just curiosity to see how it's being managed.
Yeah, no, they're doing pretty well, but there's only us here, Taos has 10 locations.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
And,
I think overall, Commissioner, you are seeing the state being active in inspections to
Yeah.
see who's actually got the proper license, the proper certifications. I think in Albuquerque, they did a bust in the spring where somebody had $1 million worth of product, didn't have a license.
That too.
Or they said they had a license, but it was for like 300 plants and they had 400 plants kind of thing. So the state is taking a pretty aggressive inspection route, to make sure everybody's everybody's.
Similar to what they do with alcohol and that kind of stuff. They inspect that to be regular too and stay on top of it. So I'm not surprised.
Was there anything else you felt did this seem,
No, this seems perfect. I just want to be able to put our product in a smaller bag and
there you go.
and be able to sell it. That's pretty much it, or, even roll our own joints. Because at this point, we're starting to get a lot of people from Red River and Taos are starting to come here to Angel Fire because of our product. So we're seeing a lot of higher traffic that people are saying, we're not going to shop in Taos anymore, we're coming here. So.
And I think you said that initially when you opened, folks were doing the same thing from Eagle Nest. They weren't going to the Eagle Nest.
Correct, so Eagle Nest sales, it's online, it's all public knowledge, but their sales have gone down 80%. Yes, as soon as we opened our doors, it just plummeted and then it's continuing to go down. So, our true goal in a couple of years, once we have our next facility up, is kind of to lower our prices so we can start getting traffic from Colorado. And people kind of make this our flagship store and bringing a lot of taxes here.
Great, we like that. part.
Yes.
Yay, taxes.
Yes. All right, well, I
Any other
appreciate you
questions? Any
guys.
Further discussion?
Oh,
Not related to this. I
just
didn't
a
have
question, real quick. So you got from the state right now?
What?
So how have you guys been doing before? Just buying from suppliers or have you guys been packaging it?
So we were
and selling?
packaging it from the beginning, and then when we had our inspection, they told me. And I was like, this almost makes no sense, because we're growing it, but we have it in bigger bags, and because I have to sell it out of the store, they said I had to get a manufacturing license to put it into tiny bags. So I went and paid for the license, to get that and to keep operations going.
Mr. Chairman, in Dallas, I have a client who has office showroom warehouse spaces. And he has a tenant that gets chiclets from Mexico and they come in bulk. And then he delivers them to that facility and then takes 5 and repackages it. And the city of Dallas says that's manufacturing. I'm like, okay.
It's,
So
you're changing the product or you're changing.
we're going from a 20-pound bag to a five chiclet bag.
Right.
So
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to letter F, discussion and approval of conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling at lot 118A, Angel Fire Village West Bill, or Angel Fire West Village subdivision along San Juan Drive. Open it up for discussion.
I move we discuss.
Second. All in favor? Oh, yeah. I don't have to say that.
Not yet.
Mr. Chairman, the village council had looked at this case when it was forwarded to them. And it asked for your reconsideration. And the only thing that council has asked in the reconsideration is not to have the factor of the lot combination be part of that discussion. Both the applicant and the property owner across the street are here. I think at both of their requests, trying to get it scheduled after Labor Day, when folks could be present to attend. But at the council hearing, they felt more comfortable, in my opinion, if the conversation, you can still have the conversation about the request, just not have the factor of the lot combination be a part of it. And again, Mr. Chairman, you've got the applicant present and property owners from across the street as well.
All right, I will open up with what I remember when we passed this thing originally. The original intent of our passing of the ordinance was for an existing dwelling that's already here, that's got over an acre. If they wanted to come back later and add a mother-in-law suite, then that's where we were getting it into. We weren't getting into a brand new person coming in with brand new property, no house built, and building two things on it at a time. The original intent of the ordinance that Jeff was there with us, so was Robin, you aren't, was that the house already existed. That was the original intent of the thing that we wrote out. Unfortunately, it didn't come out in language like that.
So what are you trying to say there?
I'm trying to say what we voted on was if you already had a house on the property and you wanted to add a mother-in-law's and it was over an acre, then we would allow that. We weren't allowing a brand new unit to come in and build both of them together. Right. It was an add-on because there was some questions about that. So that was the original intent when we voted on making that thing. So I just throw that out there. That's the original. That's what we talked about.
I'd only add, Mr. Chairman, if you would, I mean, the applicant is here.
Yeah.
If they've got a presentation,
So
and then we can go to
Right.
the property owners across the street.
But I just want to throw that out so that everybody understands what the original intent of us doing this was, that if an existing house was already there, something happened with your mother or something, then you could build a mother-in-law suite on this side of it, as long as it was over an acre. It wasn't, the intent wasn't to come in and everything over an acre to build two dwelling units on it, one for this and one for that. That wasn't the intent. So with me saying that, who would like to speak first? Or against? Okay, perfect. Just so I know who was.
Yeah.
Yes, I do, and I keep, what's the ordinance? I can't remember what it is.
Got your book. So it would either be in the supplemental regulations or go to the R1 standards. It's a conditional use that's.
You've been smoking too much back there.
Which section is it?
So let's go to the legend. Yeah. So it's so here, this is better because so let's go to 10. And then you're gonna look for this is an R1 district, so it would be conditional use, conditional uses. One lot, electrical wires. Permits. Supplement regulation. No, that's a garage. Okay. This is it is. And it may be in supplementals. Supplemental regulations. 7.
Sorry, I mean, you're right.
Oh, no, no.
It's that it's a conditional use.
Right here. Yeah. It was actually number one. Okay, cool, one. Is it all right if she goes ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to kind of describe what our intent was, and I have questions based on what you told me the intent was. When we bought the lot, we had always intended to build a house with an apartment above the garage. And our intent was, or our idea was, that we would make the apartment above the garage available for someone who was local to rent, somebody renting it, you know, because what we wanted was to have someone in the property at all the time, you know, because of, and, you know, just it's
Sure.
safer, animals, bears, fires, whatever. And so we started to explore that. We talked to brokers, we talked to the HOA, and we were told that it would be allowed. And so first, before buying the property, can I put this?
Sure.
Before buying the property, I wrote the HOA and talked to Carol Baker and said, you know, can we have an ADU above the garage? And she said, as long as it, basically, as long as it was attached to the house and we attached it in the plans with a walkway. And then she left and we verified it in January with Jackie Farmer to say, you know, is this still the Architectural Reviews Committee's point of view? And so we did that. And then after getting into it, then we realized, you know, we need a conditional use of permit from the Planning and Zoning Committee. And so, you know, we got the regulations and we just matched every standard. So the first one is it has to be over an acre and we have 1.8 acres.
Right, because of the combination of two lots, correct?
Yeah, and so, which we bought it that way.
It was already.
It was already combined. We didn't combine it.
I don't think that the
Right.
last P and Z, that was clarified,
Right,
Yeah,
but it was clarified at council.
yeah,
And I think that's part of the reason why council said,
kick it back.
let's talk about that a little more.
yeah. And so we just went down the list, you know, we had over an acre, we met setbacks, the minimum separation of the detached structures of 10 feet. You know, the additional parking spaces, we just went down the list.
Are these the two parking spaces, the single carport and then the additional parking behind it?
Yeah, and then there's 2-car garage.
Yeah, and then that's,
And we, at this point, you know, we're in the design stages and the architecture is drawing it up, so we're very fluid and we can make changes. So that was what we were, so we feel that we meet every condition for the conditional use permit. Now, what I'm hearing from you is that the conditional use permit was never intended as a rental.
No, not hearing that.
Oh, I'm sorry. That
The,
wasn't,
the original intent was
The
it
original.
never be built. The original intent was the structure's already here
yeah,
and it's over an acre.
Yeah.
Now I wanna add this.
okay,
That's was the original intent.
okay,
And it was to be like something like a mother-in-law suite or something like
Right,
that.
right.
The original intent wasn't building both of these at the same time. And architectural control, really, the only thing they can say, they have no say so except for the exterior.
mhm,
Let me see here, must be in general harmony with the general surrounding, they have no. They can't say it's okay to build two
right,
houses.
right, because they're more
Right,
concerned
they're-
with the
they're-
appearance.
the only thing they have can say is about the exterior of the property, or the exterior of the house, they can't say anything about the inside of it.
Yeah,
There's actually been to some points where people have been leaving out that they're gonna put a kitchenette above the garage,
mhm,
because then it's considered 2 units at that point.
mhm,
And so I have seen people kind of mislead
yeah,
and do stuff like that, which I can't believe people would do that, but they have,
yeah,
several times.
yeah.
But yeah, so the original intent was to have an existing dwelling on the place.
Mhm.
And then something comes up, with your mother, and she can't live by herself, then to build a casita or whatever they want to call the thing. And it had to be over an acre, and that was the original
From,
intent.
from what I remember of the discussion we had last time, though, there was a lot of emphasis on it being originally 1 acre without any additions. It originally was platted as 1 acre or more. And it's my
Right.
understanding, that's why we shot it down, was because this wasn't originally 1 acre, it was amended into 2. It was 2
But-
lots into 1.
Right, but what I did,
I don't
when-
see that here. I
Yeah.
don't see that stipulation here, it just says in lots of 1 or
and
over.
when I bought, this is what I.
No, I
had
understand,
in
yeah,
escrow, Yeah,
yeah.
we just,
Yeah, so that was just a miscommunication
Yeah.
on whatever part. But yeah, so it is, when you purchased it, it was combined lots.
right.
Does it matter?
Well, no, the
I don't see
original,
it matter here. On lots of 1 or over, I'm assuming it's acre or over. It doesn't say that were originally 1 acre or combined or
no,
not combined, doesn't say.
that's what I say, it doesn't, that part doesn't matter. The original intent was an existing structure already being on that said property to come back and add another unit to that said property.
So I have a
But that was the original intent,
and that's not.
and that's
noted,
not,
right, but I have a question about the original intent.
okay,
This is a family house. It's, my daughter and her husband, and then they have 2 kids. And so it's the 3 of us that are bought the lot, that are gonna build it. And I'm 71 years old, so, yeah. And I hate to admit that, but whatever. And so if we build the house, if later we say, well, now she's 75. And we want an in-law, then can we come back?
that's what I would say, that was the original intent, just what
And
you
then it
described
would
right
be the
there,
original intent.
correct.
Yeah.
That's the way, like I say, that was the original intent, I already had an structure out there, and then something happened and blah, blah, blah. Need someplace, because, I'm looking at the same thing now at mine, because my wife's dad is 88 and 13 stints, I'm gonna have to do something.
What's the time frame? I mean, you build this house and then 1 day later you can start on this other one, or you
I
gotta
would
wait a
say
year?
that's,
or you gotta wait-
that's kind of like my skyscraper deal. I don't know, I don't know. But like I say, the original intent was the structure there. Whenever, it's been later built, I don't know.
So what was behind that intent? I mean, why differentiate between having an existing house and building an add-on, or building a house and an add-on at the same time? I don't see the difference.
It wasn't proposed like that. It was proposed to add, we changed it because somebody asked it to be changed. And so we came up with, because they were thinking of smaller lots, we said, no, it's an acre. If the house is already there, on it to be an acre, then yes, you could add it. If it's under an acre, you can't have a second dwelling on it. So that was the,
Yeah, I think that whole distinction without a difference is kind of not germane to the
I
conversation.
mean, I just
but
don't see
think-
in here where it says you have to have an existing house first.
that's what I said. When
I,
It
yeah, I
wasn't-
get that. It doesn't, does it say that?
It says, 1 detached or attached accessory living quarters may be added within 100 feet of the principal dwelling, but not larger than 50% of the area of the principal
Correct.
dwelling, with a minimum of 500 square feet of heated.
And so the word existing isn't in there.
right, maybe added, it said, and that's where
You
it
know,
should have been.
When we do
That's not-
subdivisions here. Not necessarily when they're designed, not necessarily, and zoned. The lot size is determined and the style, culture and nature of the community, that area is established. There are areas here that will allow multifamily. There are areas here that will, that are designated duplex,
Mhm.
right? So there are already existing areas that accommodate those things. And when this came up, I knew this was gonna bite us in the, you know what, at some point where there were gonna be times where, well, I didn't know that it was, I thought it was one lot, or all that. I think. And whether or not it's a mother-in-law suite or antiquated old definitions like that, I think the intent was for single-family dwellings in that subdivision. Regardless, because some people will combine lots with the intent, and I know we're not supposed to talk about this, but they're looking for more Lebensraum, right? They're looking for space around them where they have more privacy. And so to me, that's kind of the critical thing. Now, yeah, we did allow for existing homes, as I understood it as well, that and a reasonable accommodation would be provided, given that the size of the lot was big enough.
Right, greater than.
And sometimes, you know, if it's a duplex lot, guess what? You'll find sewer out in front of your property as well. So that, you know, those are the things that, but I'm concerned that we are changing the nature of the subdivision, but I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought we were kind of going down a bit of a rabbit hole on, you know.
Yeah.
I just don't see, as long as we conform to what we have here, how that changes the neighborhood.
It says in there, maybe added, so
Well,
you gotta have something before you can add something added.
and I'm.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Can they build the house and then next week start on the garage?
That's,
You can
You
start
wanna
on the,
build a
you can
house
start on
without
the
a
house
garage?
and the garage at the same time, it's just you can't, in that garage, put in the second amenities.
So just leave it unfinished till the house is finished and then come back and finish it?
You could do that. I'd prefer not that route. Just from my perspective, you're gonna get a permit, do the work. I don't know the value of it phasing in that way, that's.
It's not gonna
discussion beyond
change
that.
anything.
no, and that's my whole contention. I understand exactly what you're saying. You won't get off the point that what it says, it's not written what we said. We made a mistake when we wrote the thing, is what I'm saying.
So that falls into the spirit of
The spirit of the argument is what it was. So that's all I can say.
Well, that was your spirit at the time.
Well, no, that's all of us spirit. We all
That's not
agree.
my spirit.
I just think just from staff's point of view. Whether it's the spirit or what's actually written, I just recommended there's a line of caution on that.
Exactly.
So that the decision, I think the code has standards for you to consider in this type of case. Because it's a case by case basis throughout that zoning district. It's not a blanket approval for anybody to
No.
automatically get it.
Nope, it's not.
Anybody who wants that portion developed on their property has to come with an application. But I want to make sure that whatever decision's being made is more in line based on what, for example, if somebody came in to do a variance and the code says you can approve a variance so long as you can demonstrate A, B, C, or D, or E, that the commission look at the same standards
Right.
for what's here.
Across
So
the board.
whatever's written here, staff's preference to take forward is that whatever decision is made.
Right.
That there's justification based on what's written there on that sheet. But if the only item I mentioned, Mr. Chairman, is if there's not any more questions or if you're done. with your
Yeah.
Oh, no, I
presentation.
have a couple more things.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I want to say is I'm not trying to change the characteristic of San Juan. I feel that with a lot that's just under 2 acres, we're keeping with the housing density because most of their lots there are under an acre. So we're not changing that. We're building the house back from the street because we like the trees and we really want to be in the middle of the woods. And so what we like to do is we will have to cut down trees to build, but we don't want to cut down any more trees than we're really required to, either for building or fire safety. So, and when we started this, you know, I went with the broker and said, because, you know, I said, oh, single family is single family. I went with the broker and said, okay, I want to look at lots of multifamily because we want to do a house and a garage apartment. And I looked at a few in the same area because I personally want to be close to the hiking trail.
Sure.
My kids want to ski. You know, they want the resort. And she said, and I was told, no, you don't really want this lot because multifamilies in this area are really for more than just 2 units. And she said, and you can build an apartment above the garage in a single family zone property. Well, so that's when I wrote the architectural review committee. And because, you know, is this really true? And so she said it was true. We pulled the specifications say it's allowed. And so we moved forward. And that was just our planning process.
Okay.
So do you have any other questions for me?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you guys?
You guys have any more questions?
But thank you.
Okay, thank you
Yes,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Your amendment.
Committee members, Clerk Lyra, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Chairman, thanks for the opportunity. The applicant is now here this is the 3rd time, no changes to their application. Therefore, I'm not going to revisit the arguments related to R1, what the decisions, how the decisions that the council may make, how that will impact R1, how ADU violates the quality of the single family home subdivision here. However, I do want to address, in addition to what you've heard the applicant say here, I want to address 3 main issues that came up when this was before council. One would be a councilman's confusion over the difference between income generation from a property and actually increasing that property's value. I want to talk about the applicant's claim that this would somehow benefit workforce housing. And then most importantly, a particular councilman's misplaced reliance on prior approvals. And I will explain why that is extremely problematic. And when you all decide what recommendation you're going to make to council, I would suggest you consider that 3rd point that I will get to very carefully. So first, maximizing income from a property, it is not the same as increasing the actual property value. Okay, and this was, it was stunning to me at the council meeting that there could be confusion over these 2 things. It's completely flawed logic, and the particular councilman, I mean, this reasoning, every single lot in R1, therefore, should have a gas station, or should be a hostel, or perhaps a cannabis shop, because that would maximize the income that's generated. But at what cost? Okay, the cost is to the property values of all of the adjacent properties. So that should not be a basis for your decision, your recommendation to council here. It's a backdoor attempt to degrade R1, period. That's what it is.
Is this the value of this versus the income generation?
That,
I remember this conversation.
I thought you were at the council meeting, perhaps you weren't, but it was a consideration.
I'm not
at
seeing where
council.
the value or cost, any of that's in this.
What I am saying, committee member, is that this was a key issue for consideration of the council when this applicant was last before him. And so again, I am addressing that.
Do you think
That's
it
fine.
affected it coming back to us?
Absolutely. That's why I'm raising it now.
That's, yeah.
And that's fine. I can move on.
No, but there is a distinction to be made
There-
there, income producing and value and the inherent value of the lot.
Absolutely.
Okay, so catch me up then. So what does that have to do with this?
Okay.
Sorry.
So what happened is village council, one of the council members thought that it would increase the value and make all this good stuff. So that was part of the reasoning for not approving and kicking it back to us. So Mr. Manley is trying to go through what each one of the council members' objection was and why it came back to us and address those issues so that we fully understand why it was kicked back to us.
Okay.
Is
Again,
that fair enough?
yes, absolutely.
I still don't see why they would even object on those grounds. I don't see the relevance.
Committee member,
That's okay.
your
Keep going.
job is to recommend up to council, and so I'm trying to address their concerns that they described during the meeting.
My recommendation would be that's not one of their concerns.
Okay, but that is one of their concerns, and it's clearly enunciated during the meeting. And if you weren't there, I can't help you with that. The applicant's concern about workforce housing, okay. Look, I'm sorry, it's a ruse. All right, we're not going to address workforce housing by ADUs in R1. Okay, so let's call this what it is, right? This is generating rental income under the guise of altruism. That's it. That's what this is. Okay. I will keep moving. The last issue, the one that I mentioned, you've got prior conditional use permits that a councilman said were dispositive of what was to happen here. That prior conditional use permits allowing this sort of development in R1 was somehow justified that it was able to go forward. Again, here, you've got prior decisions in other subdivisions. Those are not binding on all the other property owners. Okay, if they were, where was the notice? Okay, not only was I not even a homeowner here when this was, when this particular change to the ordinance, which is now retroactively being applied to my subdivision and therefore impacting my property. All right, it's impermissible to do that. If the intent was the very first time one of these ADUs in R1 came up, if the intent was to apply that to every single family home down the line, then every single R1 family homeowner should have been given notice. So you cannot consider the prior approvals when you make this determination. If a judge were to do this, it's reversible error, plain and simple. Okay, so it's an ex post facto, sorry to use the Latin term, right? I'm the lawyer. You can't apply laws in the past to people in the future without giving them proper notice. Okay, again, that's what's going on here. You're essentially abrogating anything about R1 that makes it unique. It is the highest level of zoning. Okay, people make their purchasing decisions knowing they're in R1. If R1 means nothing, then do that by an ordinance change. Just because it's a conditional use, I was glad to hear Mr. Martinez say that it's case by case basis. Okay, that's a fact. So again, these prior decisions should have no basis on this particular decision. I just want to point out that it's potentially negligent and legally unsound to approve a conditional use permit on what has happened in other subdivisions in this community when you haven't given notice of those decisions and their impacts, using them to make this decision going forward to impact other people like me situated where I am. And just finally, the body has an obligation to enforce the zoning ordinances that are on the books, the ones that were there, that we all have notice of. I feel bad for the applicant if they've been given the wrong information from, it sounds like potentially one or two realtors from the association, former association executive director. But I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I had a homeowner tell me, geez, I didn't realize I had to pay assessment if I no longer use the amenities. I mean, we're not gonna do this community any good by rewarding folks that just act on bad information. It's up to you to understand what it is you're buying and what it is you can or cannot build there.
Do you have that same obligation when you buy?
Of course. And I did. I researched my property, committee member. I understood that it was in R1, which is single family home. The applicant's proposal is not a single family.
Do you have
home.
any objections based on any of these standards here?
I mean, I've made my objections clear.
Well,
Again,
I
it's a
mean, I heard you
condition.
arguing
Yeah.
against stuff that happened in a council meeting with other councilors and stuff, but not necessarily interacting with this committee here.
I have interacted with this committee previously when it
I know,
voted
I know,
5-0
but I'm just
to turn
asking
this
you,
down.
is there anything here that you object that they are violating? I mean, I don't see anything here that they're violating. And I don't care what's going on in other divisions, what other people did before or anything like that. What concerns me is what's written here and what they're presenting here.
So every single conditional use application is to be approved?
Yeah, not to be approved, but it's to be talked
That's,
about.
if that's your, I mean, if that's your position, that's fine.
I'm not saying that you can put words in my mouth every time I talk.
I'm letting you ask your questions. I'm trying to answer.
I
them.
said nothing about every conditional use permit being approved automatically. I said nothing about that. Did you hear me say those words?
That's
No,
what I
you did not hear me
intuited.
say those words.
That's fine.
I'm saying this thing right here, as it's written for conditional use, do you have any objections based on these things? Do you think that their setback is too close? Do you think they don't have enough parking? Do you think they have? I mean, that's all I'm concerned about. I don't know what other people did in the past. I can't make my judgments based on that. I have to make my judgments based on this.
I understand. And again,
Here, let's, time. Help me. What does that right there say?
This is May.
The,
Hey, it may be added. I get it.
Okay,
We're
so-
gonna vote on it here in a minute to see if it may or may not be added. But all
but
I'm
you gotta have
asking you is,
something to have
do
before
you
you act.
think that the setback and open space requirements are met and the structure's architecture compatible with the principal building?
I've made my
Do you
position.
think the minimum
clear.
separation of detached structures?
You can go through every single one of them.
I will go through every.
It's fine, go ahead.
Because I want you to say, if do you have any objection based on any of these?
I have an objection.
Based on what?
To a rental unit. Okay,
Getting
being,
there.
being placed over the garage. That is not a single family home.
Excuse me.
That is two.
In the back, guys. We're listening. I mean. I think it's inappropriate for council members to be laughing in the back during our. Okay,
It's not a single family home. It's two habitable units.
This is better. I like this better, but it is one house, is it not?
Well, look, I mean, there was much discussion of the architectural committees involvement here. What's the purpose of a breezeway?
I don't know.
It's to make-
One house or not?
It's to connect. It's to make something that is two habitable units appear like it's a single family home.
So you object to the
Mr.
breezeway.
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, that argument right there, I'm just gonna try to clarify from a staff perspective. The breezeway component is really more, I believe, on the covenant side.
Yeah.
In compliance with those standards in the covenant. From our perspective on staff, the moment you put two kitchens in, it's two dwelling units.
Right.
Regardless if there's a breezeway, regardless if it's open, from our perspective, they're asking for a second kitchen, which is a second unit. The breezeway is really in compliance with a covenant condition, that's outside of our purview. If, in our instance, it just, the standard says you can't build this extra unit 700 feet away from the main house. It has to be within 100 feet. So, just to clarify that one point on the breezeway.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thanks.
Again, if it's one kitchen, it's one habitable unit.
That's what
We're-
you're objecting.
we're not here.
Kitchen.
What I am objecting to is that it is two habitable units, therefore it is not a single family home.
So if it didn't have a kitchen, you would be okay.
I wouldn't have standing to argue anything.
We wouldn't be here if it
We
didn't.
wouldn't be
have a
here.
kitchen.
So that's the whole thing. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't right. Any questions?
Yeah, the only other thing I'm just, it came to my mind is, the other thing that you have to always consider in these things is that you may not be the permanent owners going forward, and there may be a complete liquidity, so. As compelling as the ask is, and as lovely as you are, I'm trying not to allow that to color my decision in
Right,
any
we
way,
could-
because I understand that you may sell it in 2 years. And so my good deed
That's
goes
not-
punished.
yeah, but that is the reality.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
I'm good. Are you?
Thank you.
Everybody, good? You're not good?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Do
you still
more
have,
questions?
you still have discretion if you've got questions that need to be answered, or even discussion amongst yourselves about the motion. You're still entitled to that.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a follow-up question you want with the applicant, with the property owner across the street, you're still entitled to that. So I don't want you to feel, the only thing I want to be mindful of, it's come to my attention that in 6 minutes, the council is going to convene just to go into executive session. So they're gonna go to the back room to talk
Right.
about a product. So if we may, at 5:30, once they get quorum, move to recess momentarily if we need
Okay.
to let them
Do their
officially
deal.
convene. We'll come back into this space until they come back. That'll be a little shuffle, but I don't want to feel that if there's more conversation you need to have, I encourage you to take it. Don't feel rushed that we gotta get out because we can come right back. Again, if you've got questions of staff, applicant, Mr. Manley, you're still entitled for those discussions. Or even just talk amongst yourselves, absolutely.
Do you guys think there's further discussion required, or?
Well, like I say, I'm going off of what my original intent was when we voted to do that. And now second guessing myself, I wish we would have never put it in there. We wouldn't be in this predicament. Because I can see this may come up more and more and more again.
Yes,
Um,
which was my concern.
which was your concern, but we all agreed that, it's already an existing structure, it's not any different to add a mother-in-law,
Well, at this point, we have some fairly influential people within the community, citing precedents, which, as Mr. Manley has discussed, really doesn't.
And I don't buy that. Residence doesn't mean anything. I
It
mean,
doesn't, but it may have contributed to it coming back to us, and we're going to decide on it, right?
Right.
And
So if we have-
precedents doesn't.
Here, I'll make this real easy. If we have no further questions. Let's just, thank you, Mr. Manley.
Thank you.
There's no further discussion?
well,
Please,
I'm not quite
I want you to feel like you've had a full voice
Again, Mr. Chairman, again, if we need
That's
to,
okay.
we'll recess and come back. I don't want to commission, I personally don't want to.
Let's recess for a few
Okay.
minutes and come back.
You want-
Because I've got some things I want to think about. Yeah, and Todd was agreeing to look through your. agenda.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Chairman, if you want to move to recess for 20 minutes or. Rocky, how long do you think that they're actually going to need to convene?
No idea how long it'll take in there.
Because in my head, it seems to be call to order, gavel, go to the back. Yeah, so,
Well, that means he's faster than I am.
But when they come back, we'll need to,
exactly. I mean,
But there's snacks back there.
Is there? Why don't we go back? They pay us.
snacks are next door.
Y'all
Mr.
got- Hey,
Chairman,
y'all got snacks back there?
Mr. Chairman, if you want to say 10 minutes, and if they need another,
Right.
we.
Let's recess for 15 minutes.